All right, let me make sure my camera's turned on too. There we go. Welcome everybody. It is MogTalk episode 6. Today is Monday, March 30th, 2015, and we have a patch day tomorrow. If you guys were enjoying that music, that was from Alex J. Azlani. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, man. It was called The Unforgiven. I'll play it one more time for the people who didn't catch it at the very beginning here. And how are you guys doing? So let me know in the chat here. Today we'll be discussing a good bit of news, stuff about Party Finder ending up in Lodestone now, Mog Station gifts, touch a little bit on the Collector's Edition pricing for Australia, and you guys kind of think about the worst reasons people don't show up for a static, because I'm going to have a little bit of a discussion there about that, because I found some pretty funny ones earlier. And, of course, we're going to have a discussion on mechanics, both on classes and boss mechanics. And to finish it off, it wouldn't be right if before patch day we didn't talk about the patch. Tonight with me, I have Mr. Gilly and Mr. Adagio.
Hey, how's it going?
Yep, and if you guys are interested in their Twitch, it is in the bottom right corner of their name, so you can follow them. But how are you guys doing? Gilly, Adagio, how was the last week?
It's doing pretty good.
Out for Zeta.
Oh, yeah. Are you trying to get it all the way out? Well, I'm actually hoping they increase the drops or something before the expansion hits, and I'm just going to farm it then.
Yeah, me and Jen kind of busted this one out in like 2 weeks.
Jeez.
Roughly.
Like from beginning to finish, or?
Yeah, we started at books, and now we're just doing the Zodiac grind now, or Zeta grind.
Oh, jeez. Adagio, have you been grinding with Zeta as well?
I've actually finished mine on the first week that it was out, so no, I haven't. But I've been doing a bunch of Titan and pony farming.
Right. Well, I mean, I honestly, I've been still trying to clear T13.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, I did
see
see that. I was like in your chat, I was like, one more time.
Yeah. I mean, we're so close to it. I feel it. I know this Wednesday we're going to get it. It's just, the dive bombs always just like, if you mess up, one person has one hiccup, one lag spike any point in that fight, then most likely you're going to have to wipe it and try again. It's insane. But let's hop to it real quick. Tonight for news, I wanted to go over some of that first. I have a few bits of news that I ran into over the week. One being that they added Lodestone and party recruitment to, event and party recruitment to Lodestone. Did you guys hear anything about that?
I did see that. It's like cross-server Party Finder.
Yeah. I'm not really sure how valuable it's going to be. It seems like it would be kind of an awesome concept when you're talking about meeting up with people in real life or something. I guess you can do like a local group and just look for 24 people and hang out. But, how do you even do cross-server?
You basically have to load up under a different language. Like, you have to coordinate with someone over like a voice service and say, hey, okay, we're all queuing as German, so queue. Now, we actually did this with a person in my stream last night. She wanted to run with us, but she's on Famfrit and we're on Exodus, so we're like, okay, let's queue up as Dash, and we'd count down like 3, 2, 1 queue, and then we're like, okay, our queue popped. Did your queue pop? She's like, yep. So yeah, that's when you both go, and then hopefully it works out. It worked out probably about
times.
4 out of 5 times, yeah.
That's kind of rough, though. I mean, like, if they set up that system for cross-server stuff, I would hope that they would set up something where it would be easier to group with people cross-server. And if you look at my image here, you'll notice that for some reason, I think I messed up the color key, and so you can kind of see the catacar floating behind there. I apologize for that. But, yeah, I was looking at it, and, there's some good stuff about it. That, when you start it up, basically all you do is you say, I have a title, event time, and a party size. You can do up to 24 people, and then you throw a description up there, kind of like a party finder, but you can do it for 24 people instead. You can make it to where it only targets your friends list, FC only, server only, or you can target everybody, which is when you get into the cross-server stuff and you have to start planning with German and everything else. And you can set it to where it's open, anyone can join it, it's approval only. you know, I was looking at it earlier today, and I think there were 7 of them up, and they're just kind of sitting there. I don't know if anyone is really making too much use out of it, at least so far. Again, like if you set something up in Party Finder, it's usually more efficient than if you're going to try to go through Lodestone and try to find someone through a separate website, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gilly, what do you think about it? Do you think it's like even worth having at this point without being able to easy cross-server?
The thing is, they gotta lift off that restriction. Like if you withdraw from duty 3 times, you get the penalty.
Yeah.
They gotta do something with that. Otherwise, it would work. I mean, if you want to play with friends across servers, and they unfortunately on a different server, it could work.
I mean, I feel like it's just a nice thing to have. It's a nice little feature, but I just can't see it being utilized properly. Unless if, again, you're trying to meet people locally who play Final Fantasy, which that might be interesting. That might be weird. I don't know. Maybe you'll find some cool people near you. Well, in chat, let me know what you guys think about it, too. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a lot more useful than I actually think it is. But let me move on to the other bit of news I found for... Actually, this is kind of a beneficial thing for us streamers. It was the Mog Station gifting. So, did you guys hear about this coming live this week?
I didn't know it was going live this week, but I did hear about it, and I think it's a nifty little thing that has passed overdue. They should have had it a while ago, honestly.
Oh, yeah. Now, I'm pretty sure they have it live just because I know Mifri has been advertising gifting minions all week. I'm assuming this is one of the ways that he's doing that. So, you just purchase it, and it gives you a paid gift code, and you redeem that on your account, and then, you got it. It's done. It's awesome for streamers because, as a streamer, if you want to do, like, a giveaway, we don't really have much to work with right now because everybody's on different servers. We do Amazon gift cards or Steam gift cards or anything, or something similar to that, but I can't imagine doing more than that. Adagio, Gilly, have you guys ever done a giveaway on your stream?
Well, I did give away 2 million last week, I want to say, because it was kind of like a little challenge. I was like, if you're an Exodus follower and we don't down Final Quill in one night, then I'll give 2 mil away. And I mean, I didn't get too many people in there, but yeah, I ended up giving 2 mil away that night.
Huh. Yeah, well, that's awesome, but then you're still limited to your server, though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Gilly, what about you?
I haven't done a giveaway yet.
Yeah, I haven't done it yet because it's just to do it. I don't feel like there's a lot of incentive unless if I'm doing something that's worth like $20, $25. And so, I haven't really gained a lot of money to do that to the stream yet. And so, sort of my schematic is if I'm going to take donations, half of all my donations at least are going to go to giveaways, and another half may be improving the stream. But I mean, I don't advertise my donations enough, so I don't really get anything out of it. So, Prazam, you're asking if it isn't already there. What exactly do you mean isn't already there? Are you talking about the website with Lodestone, or are you talking about gifting? But the other thing is that you can do with it is you could do events on your server. Like if you're going to do a community event, you can say the person who wins the Triple Triad contest that I'm going to put up at my tournament is going to get a minion. I think that's actually a pretty good idea. But then again, you have to organize a contest, and organizing those things is a pain at the moment. But then again, with your Lodestone, I think that you might be able to figure something out. Maybe you can get a tournament going on Lodestone with Triple Triad and come or Chocobo Racing or whatever you want to do, and then you can do something. Do you guys have any good ideas outside of that, what you could do with the gifting? I mean, that's really seeming like the only good use for it, unless if you want to give your girlfriend a bracelet or something, right? Or you want to give Jen, a minion, right?
She pretty much has all the minions. I got it for her already.
Yeah. He just buys them for her.
Yeah. So, hey, it's it's our 52-week anniversary. Here's your minion.
Here's your Yasha Total.
Oh, yeah.
I think it goes more along the lines of, I think that's cute, get it for me, Gilly.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, Prazam, yeah, the gifting is something that's new. It wasn't actually in system until maybe about a week ago, and then they started bringing it to light recently. Now, I think there might actually be a bad side to it too. So the bad side being, it opens up the same thing that they were complaining about with the bracelets, where you could give it to anybody. You can buy something with real life money, then give it to someone for gil. So you can kind of do that now. You can buy a minion and trade that for gil in game, right? You just give them the code.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
but
that's what people were doing with the wedding thing, but I think this is a little bit more structured, just to kind of help out people who are starting.
Yeah,
I think they're actually trying to counteract that though, because I don't think that they want to trade in-game items for actual in-game gil.
yeah. I mean, what all you have to do is give them the code, though.
Yeah.
And so you buy the code and you say, "Here's the code for it." But then again, you could be cheating the guy. But then if you cheat the guy, they're not. You have to. Well, you could server transfer and stuff, but it wouldn't be worth the money eventually. But it does open up that aspect to where if you have a whole bunch of money in real life and you did it kind of sneakily, you could get a whole bunch of gil in game.
Yeah.
So that's the only bad thing I see about it. I'm actually kind of looking forward to it just because when I do start doing giveaways, doing a $5 minion giveaway is something that's kind of in my reach. So the other note that I found in the news throughout the last week was there's a lot of people, actually this is more of a discussion about Australia and New Zealand are paying $300 for the physical collector's edition. And a lot of people are heated up about that. I mean, it's the same thing with people in Europe spending way more money on their collector's edition than the U.S. is. But, I wanted to kind of address... What do you guys think about that? Gilly, what do you think?
That is a bit overpriced, actually.
Yeah. It's
really overpriced. It's like 2 collector's editions in one.
Oh, yeah. Adagio?
It's not worth that much money. I mean, the statue's awesome and all the stuff that comes with it's awesome, but that's nonsense. They should not charge that much for it.
Yeah. I think it's absolutely nonsense. But when you start to put it in more perspective, the one thing that I did notice is that's how the game selling structure works in Australia. If you buy a collector's edition of any game, it's extremely expensive. And people will talk about minimum wage being different and all this other stuff with the economy. It's just what people sell games for over there. I think that's the same thing here. They could sell the collector's edition here, but I think they can't get... Well, I guess GameStop can get away with $150, but $130 is kind of what makes sense for a collector's edition over here.
Yeah. So. I think Best Buy and every other retailer, like local retailer, upped the price to $150 as well.
Wow.
Yep.
That's crazy. I mean, again, it'd be cool to have the collector's edition, but it's not. It's not drawing me in as much as I wanted it to. I'm not going to wear the Cecil helm. I'm not going. I mean, I would love the minion, the Griffin mount. Again, a lot of people like that, but reminds me of WoW.
Well, I mean, you get all that stuff from the digital too. You don't have to spend $150 for that part of it. It's just for the dragon and all the other stuff that comes with it.
Yeah, and the dragon, that's a cool little statue, but I don't see myself keeping it on my desk for that long. Eventually, it's going to end up somewhere else. And the art book's cool. Art books are always awesome. The CD is something that still got me a little bit. Like that CD is just trailers for A Realm Reborn, right? And Blu-ray.
I thought it was like all the cutscenes that are actually put on that Blu-ray.
I think that Gilly's correct actually on that.
Really? It might be worth a lot more then.
Yeah, it's from like 1.0 all the way up until like even the 2.55 cutscenes are going to be in it. So.
Oh, okay. Because when it said trailers to me, I instantly just thought, oh, okay, so you're just selling me the game on Blu-ray constantly. I mean, I didn't really understand what they were doing with it, but that's really news-wise. Besides, 2.55, all I really found over the last week. I mean, I think we've mentioned on MogTalk already that they were doing the mobile app. Do you guys know about the mobile app?
Yep, they're supposed to be linking it with the game and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's expected to be around a little bit after Heaven's Ward. Is what I found out, which is going to be amazing. Then I don't have to collect everybody's cell phone numbers anymore. And then, after I kick them out at a static, it'd be awkward, which has happened once so far.
But, I think it'd be funny to actually, if they actually put Triple Triad in that app.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, God, I would buy it in a second. I'd buy an iPad, I'd buy everything. Maybe a big tablet. I'd just carry it around with me playing Triple Triad all day. I think they were talking about doing that, but that's more of like an envision that might happen. They talked about it, maybe it's like Gold Saucer. They talked about it, and then what happened 2 years later? So, I mean, it might be something they introduce by the next expansion. So there's nothing to really look forward to that I know about. But have you guys heard anything? Gilly, have you heard any other news throughout the week?
That's about it. I'm actually curious on what we get in this new patch tomorrow, or something new.
Yeah. It's been a pretty slow.
Everybody's waiting for Heaven's Ward. I've seen actually people quit the game just because they're waiting until then.
Well, yeah. And I mean, if you're hardcore at the game and you're 7-manning, T13, and the only thing you have to look forward to is doing T13 cells, there's not a lot in the game for you.
Yeah.
Adagio, what about you, man?
Yeah, it's been a pretty slow news week, but I did see that you posted something on the Reddit forums earlier about some kind of 8-man trial or something. It looked pretty awesome. I was interested in what that was. I didn't get the chance to research it any, though.
There's the new thing that they're coming out with 2.55, which I don't know what it is yet. It's just, we'll get into it a little bit later. I don't know if it's an actual trial. I don't know if it's 4-man. I don't know what it is, but there's something. Mm-hmm. Are you talking about the one with the dragon in it and everything?
Yeah, the one with the dragon and the crazy AoEs on the ground or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing it's going to be an 8-man, but I don't know if it's just going to be a one. It's going to be like Chrysalis. You do it once and you're probably never going back to it.
One shot and done.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
All right. Well, before we get into our discussion today, I did have a fun little thing. Like, we talked on it a little bit last week. Is people having really horrible reasons for not showing up to raid. So, just real quick, let me get this up. And while I'm getting this up, Gilly, do you have any experiences with just really horrible excuses? You might have mentioned some last week. But can you think of one off the top of your head?
Oh, yeah. This is the funniest one. He was like, oh, there's some guy tipping over trash cans outside. I can't make it a raid. I'm like, what? It's like 5 minutes. Go downstairs, pick up your trash can, and then come back in and raid.
Yeah, it's just that's a really weird excuse. What about you,
Adagio?
Adagio?
Go to the gas station.
Gotta go get a burrito.
No, aside from people just being asleep when there should be on, nothing really.
I actually found that a lot of people are saying that that's a thing. People always will sleep through raids. And that's crazy. I mean, it's not that crazy. People get tired, man. But it happens.
A lot of people like to try to take a nap before a raid and then wake up, but sometimes I guess their alarm doesn't go off or whatnot.
That's why I got their cell phone number. Give them a call. Was that you, Gilly, that fell asleep during the raid?
No, it's our scholar.
Oh, okay.
He's actually in chat, too.
Oh, nice. Oh, man, my camera's going crazy. Let me see if I can get it to refocus. There we go. All right. So, some of the reasons I have here, and by the way, while I'm going over this, please, chat, tell me some of the reasons you guys have heard for people not showing up to your raid or static or whatever. That's just absolutely ridiculous. Here's one reason. Someone stole our cats, and I have to go. Okay. They found out several hours later they were in a bathroom.
Oh, yeah, that seems plausible.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Of course, another one is I forgot, and that's it. They just say I forgot and go on with their day. There was one, apparently, when they were explaining why the guy didn't show up, they said he stole a $100,000 watch and fled to Mexico.
Wow.
I don't know if that's true, but
I was about to ask that, isn't it?
it's one of those things you hear and you're like, okay, whatever, man. Let's see, where's another one in here? Oh, here's a good one. I'm quitting the static so I have more time to do Chocobo racing.
That's awesome.
Chocobo racing, no, it's fun, man, but I'd slap somebody. And one of the best ones, or one of the most common ones that people just get extremely frustrated with, and I don't know if you guys experienced this before, I have, is they just show up and say, oh, by the way, I already cleared it, when they're showing up for a raid.
Yeah.
Haven't experienced that yet.
Oh, God, it's the worst. It's just like, you're going in to do the raid, they're already locked out to it. That's the one thing I was worried about when they lifted that restriction to where you can't you can still enter it after you beat it and get a one chest or no chest thing, is that people are going to start jumping in there and we'd get one chest because they already downed it. Oh, gosh. And this is one I personally had, and this was actually back in WoW days. I had to re-download the internet.
Had to re-download the internet?
Yeah. It's just like, just simple. And now that I work in IT, it's just like, I don't know how many people. To me, that seems absolutely ridiculous. Hopefully, other people can kind of realize how ridiculous that sounds. But
yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just wanted to go into that real quick because I found a whole bunch of them, and this is a post that kind of got a little bit of attention over the week. So going into our discussion tonight, and I'm actually kind of excited to get into it, is just on game mechanics. And there's two sections to this. There's boss game mechanics, and there's class mechanics. And these things define what the game actually is. And probably the most important thing, because you're saying, hey, well, what am I going to do that actually seems enjoyable and challenging to me and make me keep wanting to play the game to get better? So before we even jump into it too much, and I'll start with you, Gilly, what are the boss game mechanics in the game actually well done? Would you say they're well done?
Not really.
Not really?
I mean, they could be a little bit more challenging because, I mean, there's always that one, like, puzzle piece that's always going to fix it, or solve it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just thinking outside of the box. They have to do something that's, like, really unique. Like with the Turn 7 Savage, that was actually really cool. The Renowned that you stone is also going to shoot beams out of its eyes. That'll stone you. So that one is, like, pretty much nothing negligible that you can actually do to, like, if you mess that up, you're pretty much wiping.
Right. No, I love, that's why it's one of the hardest ones right now, is because of that one mechanic and trying to get all that organized. But, I would say I kind of agree with you that once people kind of get in the zone with it, there's not much to challenge them. But I think maybe one possibility could be adding RNG to it. And if you add more RNG to the fights, you don't have the same puzzle piece. You have to kind of work with it each time.
Yeah.
But, people work around that too. They make RNG with the dive bombs, so people have a system for dive bombs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mega flare targets.
Adagio, what do you think about the mechanics in the game so far?
Honestly, when you're in progression with them, they're pretty good. But like I said last week, once you get that clear and you got your group doing what they need to do when they need to do it, it's just routine, recycle, redo, and it's just at that point it's just like, okay, well, these are kind of boring now.
Yeah. I mean, my own opinion about this is that I think the game mechanics are awesome. Like you said, like while you're progressing through them, they're great because you have to learn them and you have to do a lot of practice to kind of get into it. But at the same time, it does get boring because they are at that level to where to beat it, you actually have to memorize all this stuff and get good at it. And once you're good at it, it's easy. There's no more challenge anymore. It's just in your head as memorization. So going towards off quality a little bit, just do you guys? We kind of went over this a little bit, but you guys think it provides a challenge at first, but then later that challenge completely dissipates.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I would completely agree with that too. Okay, so when we're going into a boss fight, and chat, please, you guys can go ahead and throw any questions my way that you want to, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. I actually have Kerr helping me find these questions too, so I will be able to get these questions, and Kerr will hand select them for me, because I have an issue sometimes when we're in a discussion, and I'm just like looking at Gilly, and I'm looking at Adagio, and I'm just like having this one-on-one, or 1v1 with him. And so it kind of gets hard for me to pay attention to the chat sometimes, but she's helping me out tonight.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah, behind the scenes. She's awesome, by the way. Okay, so with all the different fights we have and the different types of mechanics, do you think there's a good variance in it? Do you think that we have different choices of mechanics? When we go fight Titan, it's different than when we go fight T7. So, Adagio, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think there's any kind of varying parts to it? And feel free to, and guys, disagree with me, disagree with each other. That's perfectly fine.
No, yeah, there is definitely as far as like turn by turn basis, there is definitely a variance in mechanics. I do like the spread of mechanics that they do have across the different turns, but like again, like I said, once you learn them, it's all routine. And again, like every arena is a circle, and how many times have we seen dive bombs?
Yeah. And I mean, they kind of have to make it a circle because then it becomes easy to abuse if it's not like a perfect circle anymore. At least I think that's kind of what led them to that. Gilly, what do you think about variance?
Just don't rehash it.
Do you think
Don't rehash mechanics.
There are a handful of mechanics that I'd say are dive bombs is the one. All right, everybody knows dive bombs. They throw it in the most challenging fight always has dive bombs. But the reason they put it in there is because it's challenging, and they know this is going to be hard for the players, and they can't think of another one, I guess, that's going to be more challenging, or they're holding on to those mechanics until they get into the next expansion to surprise us a little bit.
One thing too, I started noticing, like even in the normal dungeons, like the 4-man dungeons, you start noticing some mechanics that are going to be in the final raid. It's kind of like a test, but they're a little bit more cheesed in the 4-man dungeons.
Yeah.
Like dive bombs was in Circus Tower. It's like, this is how turn 9 is going to dive you. You just gotta put your dive bomb in the right spot.
And how do you guys feel about it? It kind of feels like they're trolling us sometimes on these mechanics, too, when they rehash it. Because, in T5 and T13, dive bombs work the same way, but then they work completely different when you're in T9. Like, just what's the point in doing that? Just throwing us off our game? Or
Well, that's mainly because I think in T5 and also in T9 you have Twin Tanya, so of course the mechanics are going to be similar if you have the same boss in the fight.
Mm-hmm.
I am actually kind of curious to see what they do with that Final Fantasy guide, like they're releasing, that basically tells everyone like you're doing all the mechanics wrong.
So they're
This is how you're supposed to do them.
Actually,
there's a guidebook that's pretty much got released in Japan recently that actually tells you how brand and brand swaps are supposed to be handled.
Oh yeah, I actually heard about that. I didn't know they released a guide for it, but
Yeah, it's supposed to be like almost like a 200 to 300 page guidebook on Final Fantasy.
yeah, but the way people do brand right now, from what I'm hearing, is pretty much like the same. It works great the way that people do it now. If you do it the other way, I mean, it's better, but it's not like that much more challenging if you don't do it that way, right?
Yeah.
It just does a little bit less damage.
It does a lot less damage, apparently.
It's
like one of the icons actually represents like how many people are grouped by it, and then when you pass it, it'll split the damage between everybody, and it'll do like minimal damage instead of like blowing up the person.
Oh, wow. All right, well, I'm probably never going to practice it because we're getting T12 down with that way. It's like, why would we change back? People actually, Japan handles mechanics actually a lot different than we handle mechanics, too. For example, in T9, they tank the boss in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. And we tank it on the edge. And honestly, I don't know if there's a real big, if it matters that much, but as long as all the players actually know what to do, then it's perfectly fine. I love the fact that there's different strategies out there and people use different strategies because otherwise it's boring.
The first Japanese strat I've ever seen was when the Primal Extremes got released and Garuda Extreme. Mm-hmm. They split the ads they split Garuda, Charada, and Saparna in different coordinates. So they made a triangle. So it actually split the damage between people.
Yeah, I did see that strat too for a while.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I want to be I would love to be so hardcore into this game that on day one I'm grinding and learning the mechanics myself and developing my own strategy with it. But it takes so much work to have that little bit of enjoyment and satisfaction of actually making a strategy with it.
Yeah.
And I can't convince 7 people to go in and try to invent a new strategy.
Yeah, when Second Coil got released, basically the 10 minutes it came out, me and a couple buddies and a link shell actually jumped into T6 to see what it was about, and trying to figure out how to work the Briars and the Devour and stuff like that was really insane.
Yeah, but now it's like easy. Well, it's easy to some people. Some people still don't know how to move the Thorn to like a certain spot or like to work together with the rest of your group on it.
It's like line of sight.
Okay, so going off variants, this is the most important part. Are the mechanics interesting? Are they enjoyable? Is it something that you're doing and you're like, this is actually kind of a fun thing to try to overcome? Adagio, what do you think about them?
Yeah, I mean, like every time, I'm still enjoying. We go back and do T9, T5 clears for people that don't have it down, and I still enjoy it. It's always fun. I said, I mean, even if the mechanics do get repetitive, it's still fun to get in there and do it. To be doing something and helping people out.
Yeah, Gilly.
I think trying to bend the fight, like relearning different mechanics, but doing it different ways is actually pretty cool. Like when we did, what would you call it? We did a 5-man Titan X last night, which was hilarious. It wasn't really 5-man. The 3 guys, the 3 pugs, the 3 pugs got knocked off, and we're just like, well, looks like we're 5-manning it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of awesome things you can do with the, just going into the fight with different situations. For example, you can run in there with 8 warriors and beat it, and that's fun, right? That's just something more you can do with it, but I don't know. I think that this game actually has some of the most well-thought mechanics, just because, there are the ones that are the same thing. You have the tank buff. All right, so the tank gets hit, the next hit's going to be stronger. Or they get one shot if they don't blow a cooldown. You have vulnerability debuffs. You have players stack, and you have players spread for certain mechanics. You have healers have to heal somebody all the way up. And then, dive bombs. But then when you start to look at it, other than that, most of these fights have a good amount of variance in what mechanics actually exist. I think, at least. And the only reason I say that is because when you're looking at stuff like Rage of the Bahamut, where else do you see Rage of the Bahamut at?
Yeah.
Where you have to collect ores. I mean, you sort of have something similar to that in Chrysalis, but it's not exactly the same thing. Then you have the one shot that Bahamut does is really 3 hits, right? At first, it's like big hit, or 4 hits at the first one. You got the 3 flare breaths, and then the 1 big hit, and then you have sort of like Twisters, but it's like a tethered version of Twisters with Tempest Wing. Mm-hmm. And you kind of see that in another fight, but it's not the same. It's something new. It's something fresh. When you talk about Titan, that's one of the first ones that kind of came out. That was a real challenging boss, and you have lots of landslides, you have bombs. They reintroduced bombs, but in a different way in like Shiva and stuff like that, or Shiva. I might be saying that completely wrong. I'm sorry. I know there's lots of arguments over it's like GIF and GIF. But, Titan, how many other fights have a lot of landslides in them? I mean, you have Typhoon that pushes you off, but, you don't have a landslide, all right? I mean, I'm sure it's somewhere. I mean, dive bombs, I guess, kind of react like a landslide in a way. But
Shiva does knock you back into the wall with her bow. So I mean, there's stuff out there that does also have a pushback into a wall mechanic. But
but it doesn't.
Of course, you don't get
that.
One shot.
It doesn't have that telegraph that tells you it's like, oh, you stand here, you're pretty much done.
Yeah, I think they change it up a good amount, and it seems like they spend a lot of time working on these fights. It's not just let's throw out a whole bunch of bosses and be done with it. We just rehash the same mechanic each time. They think about, I'm going to have these mechanics in there. It's going to be different than these other fights because of this, and it's actually going to be challenging because of this. Not just. I think dive bombs one of the things that they just kind of give up. I don't know how to make this more challenging. Let's throw dive bombs in there. But other than that, they do a pretty good job. I mean, T9 was hard as hell when it first came out, right? Mm-hmm. And it's pretty nerfed.
To me, it's still the hardest fight compared to T13.
Yeah,
we tried to get a clear for someone, and just because we didn't have our group in the way we always ran it, we ended up doing it like 4 or 5 times and not getting the clear for them. So, I mean, when you get out of your element and you get different people and different classes, it's still really challenging. So,
yeah. I do have one question here, and this is who is Succotash? Is that right? Am I saying that right? Okay.
That's right.
Talking about mechanics they want to see are like a mechanic disappearing with a disappearing floor in certain areas.
Yeah, I saw that comment too. That sounds really interesting. That'd be really fun.
No, yeah.
Light mechanic.
I would love that. That's actually a really good idea, man. You need to post it up on suggestions. Just having, the floor kind of, you see like a mark, and then if you're in that mark, you just fall through the floor and die. Kind of like...
Floor explodes.
Oh, yeah. Or, it'd be even... Another rendition of that is like it glows, and then if you're still standing on it, it slams you into the ceiling and you die. I would like that.
That'd be interesting,
But then you could still res afterwards, right? Because your body would just kind of fall back down. And I don't know.
Oh, that's why the floor has to disappear, and then you're out of the fight completely.
Yeah. Or they could do, maybe if they added more like changing rooms mechanics where you're not always in the same room. Like you do this part of the fight, then you fall to the floor like a Mortal Kombat thing, where you fall to the floor and then you're on the next part of the fight. That would be actually pretty awesome. But yeah, I think the fights do a really good job. Just they put enough thought into it so it's not as boring. It's boring to us because we destroy it after we beat it the first time. But I don't know what else you can really do to challenge that besides adding more RNG. Like, say I have 10 chances of a certain mechanic happening, sort of like, T10. You don't know exactly what mechanic's going to come up, but you have two. But you only have two choices, really. You don't have whatever happened last, and you just have two choices that will come next. What if they did 10 choices?
Yeah, that'd be pretty crazy.
That would make it a new fight almost every single time you do it.
Oh yeah.
So, but then again, that's a lot of programming to do. And sometimes you're going to have an easy fight, sometimes you're going to have a hard fight. But maybe people want that. Would you want more RNG elements like that into your fights?
I think it would definitely keep it interesting. It wouldn't feel so like rinse repeat every week. I would definitely like that.
Yeah.
I definitely love the T10 last phase, like just because you don't know what you're going to get,
Mm-hmm. I mean, actually, I was watching, I don't know if do you guys know who Trumpelli is? Is that right? Trumpy, yeah. I was watching his stream. He was telling me that his group has more issues with T10 than they do with T13 at this point. And I guess that's just because people get an autopilot or something. But one question from Succotash again is that statement is that he wants more interactive mechanics. Clarify real quick if you don't mind. What do you mean by more interactive mechanics? Do you mean like, do you want where you have to choose what you do and then that affects other things? I don't know. I mean, I guess if you mess up the mechanic, you're interacting with it, right? Because you fail it, then you die. But
probably means more like you have to have a certain amount of people click on certain things, or else the boss powers up or something.
Like Levy,
something like that. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, I can see that, but you just run and you have to be like in a certain area or something, or you have to click on a certain thing. I mean, is that kind of what you're looking for? Is just something that you would click on to be part of the fight? Gilly?
We kind of have something like that in Cerberus in World of Darkness, where you have to interact with the chains and then interact with his, the tether.
And I will say that fight has gotten so much acclaim from the players. They love that fight simply because you go into the stomach, and I think that's an awesome concept. I mean, you guys think it's awesome, right?
Yeah, I think they also like it because it has the echoed form of the battle song. So I think that just adds the extra element of like you being in an alternate world kind of.
Oh yeah, where it's kind of echoed because they put that thought into it. They're like, okay, and let's go into some of those bosses too. I mean, how many of those bosses besides? I mean, the mechanics in those bosses are actually different. The models, like the Hydra model, is old. We're tired of seeing Hydra, but the mechanics in that fight, it has a difference from the other bosses that are out there. And how many do you have to try to pass a tether to constantly before you die? Like the fairy to Firefly or something, you have to kind of pass that to other players so it doesn't do damage.
Yeah.
I mean, can you guys think of another fight that has a mechanic similar to that?
I know there is one. I just can't think of it right off the top of my head. There is something we have to pass off a tether.
I mean, not what you would call it, T12's mechanic, where you have to pass the fire back and forth.
Oh yeah.
But I can't think of another one. What about Gilly? Can you think of one?
Nothing really.
Yeah.
Probably T13's Tempest Wings, where you have to pass stuff, but that's about it.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I will say about the interactive thing, I wanted to go back to that because we started talking about Crystal Tower and stuff like that, is the tanks clicking on the towers in Behemoth. That's the most boring thing that has ever been introduced in the game.
Was
Best
not planned out well.
Yeah, compared to everything else, and that falls in line to the interactive part where you kind of click on stuff. But Jesus, that is, I don't know how upset I was when they were like, tank, go stand at this tower and just click it every single time it closes.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a tank. It could be a healer.
It could be, but it never is, right? Because you have 6 tanks, and what are the other 4 tanks going to do? They can do
honestly,
damage, but
Honestly, some of the more recent Labyrinth and the Ancients runs, I've been clicking it on my healer because the tanks, I don't know what they're even doing anymore.
I don't think people remember what that fight does, or that they're too new to the game. They never really had to do it, so they don't know what to do anyways. They just kind of their way through it. So, all right, well, that kind of goes a good bit into it.
Elegant Rot. I actually do miss that mechanic.
Elegant Rod, what was that from? Why am I forgetting that?
T2.
Turn 2.
I never did T2.
That's because they had the enrage method where people just healed through it.
I think I did T2 actually, but like I just blasted through it because I was so overpowered at the point when I did do it. And so explain Elegant Rot to me again one more time.
Elegant Rot, you basically, I think, had a set timer. It's kind of like Brand, but instead of watching the cast bar, Elegant Rot had a debuff on you that counted down for 10 seconds, I think. And then you had to actually cycle it through your party, because if it went back to the same person, that timer was actually reduced from 10 seconds to like 9 and stuff like that. And as you're gradually going through the fight, if someone misses or passes the rot to someone else, it's basically giving you hot potato. And you blow up, or you wipe the whole party. It was an instant wipe mechanic that nobody really liked, so I guess that's where the birth of Enrage was. Enrage method.
Yeah. That's exactly how I did it. I did it in Enrage method. They were like, just sit here for a while. I'm like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Sit at the gate for like 10 minutes waiting for the counter to clock down.
That's horrible. All right. Well, okay, so going on past that, besides just adding like RNG to it, what's an idea or a new mech that you guys would like? Adagio, what's the new mech, if you had to think off the top of your head, that you would want to be introduced to the game?
Something like, can't remember the name of it. It's where you have to fight the dragon at the end, and he's like spitting out poison puddles, and you have to move the dragon out of the poison puddles.
Oh, Brave Flux.
Yeah, Brave Flux.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to move the dragon out because the petals heal him, and eventually the whole room's going to be filled up. It's kind of like a semi-rage method. So, I mean, if they did something like that, maybe even more hard, where the petals don't dissipate after a time, or something, that I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I really think in T13 they should have just made those puddles at the end of the fight just never disappear.
Yeah.
That would have made it more challenging. And that could have been the Enrage. If you don't get done before all the puddles are gone, before it fills the entire arena, then you're just dead. Gilly, what about you, man?
Mechanic. I had it too. I was like, oh, this is going to be a good one. And then I lost it.
Fair enough.
Oh, like what they do with some of the S ranks right now. Reverse damage.
Oh,
actually.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's always good.
They have
so
that.
It's like you have to watch basically if it does magic. Like you can't throw out a heal at this certain position at this certain time, or else it'll screw you over.
I agree that would be actually very good to have, just because it makes it. We don't have that as a hard mechanic really anywhere. You have it introduced in what is it? World of Darkness. You have Heat Wave.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the only other. I love that mechanic. Just seeing it. I wish people would just die to it. I love it when people die to it. But healers are always on top of it. They know everyone's going to take a lot of damage, and they keep everyone up now.
Usually I see that coming. I pre-cast Medica 2 just in case.
Yeah. They have something like that, but it doesn't do damage to you, if in T13 where you can't attack the mob until it changes to a certain resistance. So I actually do think that it would be kind of interesting, because it would just add a new flavor. I mean, almost any new mechanic right now is interesting to me. I would love to see anything other than what we have, and I'm hoping with the expansion we have like a plethora of these new mechanics. And I'm sure I'm going to come back and we're going to be talking about this again when Heaven's Ward comes out, because just to kind of review all that stuff. Now, real quick, and everybody in chat, kind of give me what your opinion is too. Let's start with you, Gilly. What's your favorite fight currently in the game mechanically?
It's actually a dead tie with Tie-In X and Turn 13.
God.
Really?
Yeah, every time Adagio needs something to stream for his stream, like something to do for his stream, I'm like, let's do Tie-In X. This is good practice.
That's just one word over the stream. Titan.
I'll tell you, Kerr loves it too, because she spent a lot of time making sure that she mastered that fight, and she knew every single move that was coming up. Can I tell them about your experiences with Titan? Okay. She got Post-it notes and put them on the side of her computer about the rotation. She was like, I know exactly when every single thing's going to happen, so I don't get hit by anything. I mean, she spent a lot of time mastering that. And after a while, she loved it. And her favorite thing, and she said this before, is just watching people fall off the side.
Yeah.
Because it's just, a fun thing to see. It's not that serious of a fight because you're going to clear it with Echo and everything now. Back when it first came out, it was extremely frustrating.
I think I use Titan X as a practice for me personally because it has so much disconnects. So if you want to practice punching out numbers, it's good for melee. Our old FC actually used to use Titan X. It's how much do you parse on a dummy? It's no, we're taking you to Titan X and see how much you parse. So,
I gotcha.
It was really awesome, actually. I love doing Titan just because all the stuff they throw at you in split seconds. It's oh, here's landslides, here's stomps, and then goals.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
I mean, you have to avoid
plume.
stuff. Yeah.
That double plume.
Double plumes. Yep.
Adagio, where are you with your favorite fight?
I have to honestly say it's a split between T9 and T13, mainly because I'm main tank solo tank for T9, and I spent probably 3 or 4 weeks just poring over different charts trying to learn their dive bomb mechanics. So now that I've got that all memorized, it's just something that's stuck with me. So.
Oh yeah. If I had to go into my favorite fights, I'd probably be on the same level with you with T9. I mean, I like Titan X, but for some reason, the one tank bosses make me feel in charge. I can't mess up everything that happens in this fight. If we fail because it's faced the wrong way, or if it's I marked the wrong thing, and I have to mark while I tank too. So I'm doing everything in that fight. I want to have complete control over it, and so that's why I like Shiva X, because it's a one tank fight. And if I face her the wrong way, I wipe the entire raid. Yeah. Same thing with T9. I can do lots of things in there that would completely screw the raid up, but because I'm in control and know what I'm doing, it makes me feel better. It's more of a challenge to me, I guess, as a tank. I wouldn't say that everyone else kind of feels the same way about Shiva. I know so many people are tired of Shiva because it's just the same thing to them. Okay, so this is a note, and I got harassed about this for quite a while because of you guys. Serdan here, he heard about 11 going free to play. We said that, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you guys hear that from?
It was on a a hidden press conference release. It was happening during, I think, the live letter in PAX was going on.
Mm-hmm.
They had a second broadcast behind it.
Huh. Do you guys have any links for it or anything?
I don't. Let me check.
Because he called me a liar all week, and he's been hounding me about it.
I listen to a bunch of podcasts at work because I just have my headphones all day, and I listen to YouTube, and I actually heard on Ultimate Final Fantasy podcast, and they have a news section, and they went over the current Final Fantasy news, and that's where I learned that from.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, there's your sources, Sir Dan. You can stop harassing me about it and look into those. And because he got really excited about it, the nostalgia hit him really hard.
I think they're coming out with another expansion and going free to play.
He knew the expansion was coming, but he couldn't find where it said free to play at, and so that's what he was so bummed out about.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is they're going to discontinue the PS2 and the Xbox 360 service and just keep it strictly on Steam and just make it free to play.
Okay. I would love to go out there and play it, but at the same time, I can't jump. I don't know if I could get over that. I don't know if I could get over not being able to jump.
That is definitely a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, in this game and every other game, just being able to jump and try to climb up stuff has been one of the biggest things to me. And in this, especially the Dragoons, apparently Dragoons have this hidden fetish with just trying to get to the highest part that they can in Mordana. But I mean, that makes sense. All right, so
I do that too. So
yeah, I mean, did you guys ever play Guild Wars 2?
I played Guild Wars 2 because I played Guild Wars 1 for years and I loved it, and sadly Guild Wars 2 fell short for me.
Oh, it was horrible at the end game. It was stupid. I mean, it had the PvP stuff was kind of fun, but I still hated that because it was kind of like zerging the entire time.
Oh yeah, that's all it was a huge zerg. Whoever has the biggest zerg wins.
And it's kind of like Final Fantasy right now with their PvP. Unfortunately, it's kind of stuck with zerg. Whoever's the biggest zerg kind of wins, in most cases at least. And I think that the one thing I loved about that game was the jumping puzzles.
I loved those. I really wish they had put them in Final Fantasy. Those were so much fun.
Yeah, and I think Yoshi P has actually talked about that, getting jumping puzzles into the game, but it's not something that's, I don't know, I guess a
Honestly,
priority.
I wish they would have put that in rather than the sightseeing log, to be honest with you.
Oh God, yeah. Instead of it's just like vistas in Guild Wars 2.
But I mean, even that was fun because you had to like. It wasn't like time of day or weather restricted. You had to figure out how to jump up this mountain a certain way, and it was platforming.
Mm-hmm.
They encouraged platforming. That was really fun.
Yeah. So another thing, Succotash has another question for us. It's I think we kind of addressed this a little bit last week. It's like he was asking if we like 24 mans and rather, or do we dislike 24 mans and would rather see 8 mans? I personally, I love both of them. I just wish that there was a harder tier of 24 man out there.
Oh yeah.
So you could get 3 of your best statics in your FC, and then you would even have a more collaborative FC instead of your just 8 man static. But Adagio.
Yeah, I do wish that there was a harder 24 man. But I really don't think that they're going to implement it. I think they're going to stay the same route where 8 man's hardcore, and they're going to release the lower tier raid as the 24.
Mm-hmm. Gilly.
Zerging. Like the chats, everyone talk. Like the chat, everybody's talking in the chat. Zerging.
Oh, Zerging. Yeah.
Not really a big fan of like the towers.
You think that the 28 or 24 man is just kind of like a big Zerg?
Yeah. Just because of like, if you look at it this way, like if you guys did an alliance run and just had one tank and you had 2 heals and everybody DPS, all the DPS could just Zerg rush.
I mean, they could have like mechanics to where a boss does like a debuff on the tank, and you have to switch through like 4 or 5 tanks before the debuff wears off to prevent that.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that if they could probably find a way to make 24 man a little bit more interesting, and having 3 tank fights might be kind of interesting, right? Then you have to balance that stuff between the 3 tanks, or you just have them again separate the tanks or the groups into 3 different sections, and then they have to deal with different mechanics. But then again, that diving into a lot of hard mechanics that you have to, or how long it takes them to do 4 fights to add 3 sets of mechanics to 1 fight. Just I can't see that happening. But let's see. I'm going to jump out of boss mechanics now, and I actually want to jump into our class mechanics. So, again, before we jump into it, Gilly, what would you say are your thoughts currently on the class ability mechanics right now that we deal with? Overall.
Like as far as like us using...
How in-depth can it be? Do you think that it's enough in there to make you feel like a really skilled player if you do it right, or if it's a rotation that's actually enjoyable to do, you feel like you're playing that class when you're doing those rotations?
I'd say yeah, it's really good. Like some of the stuff, like little niches here and there, like you can up your DPS better, or you can cancel. Like I actually taught one of my FC leads actually told me, it's like, yeah, did you know you can cancel out your Rage of Halone or Butcher's Block combo with just Provoke? I'm like, what the hell?
Huh. I actually
Apparently
didn't know that.
Somebody in the world figured out that, like, when you're throwing out, like, you're at the number, when you're throwing out number 3, right as you're casting Halone or Butchers, you hit Provoke. And Provoke will hit it first, and the animation for Butcher's Block and Halone will be cancel out, but it would still hit that full potency and that full threat.
Huh.
So it's trying, like, pretty much people glitching the system, but, if you can learn it, if you know how to do it, I think it makes you a little bit more skill-based.
Okay.
Or, like, I was also telling Jen, like, with Monk on Leviathan, like, when he does his body slam and just tilts the boat, you can actually shoulder tackle into the head, and it'll cancel out the... It'll cancel out you from sliding off the boat, but you still have to be at max range for it to work. So.
That kind of opens up like a new thought that I wasn't actually thinking about when I started working on this discussion. Is when we deal with it, there actually are unintended mechanics in the game, and I would say Flash falls into that category. If you're doing a Flash after you do those 3 abilities to cancel out that graphic or animation or whatever, so you can go faster. That's unintended, right? I don't think they put that in there, but that's still something that we deal with, and the really best players are going to be doing stuff like that. But I don't know. That would make for an interesting discussion to add on to this. Adagio, what do you think about it?
I have to be honest, I was actually a 1-2-3 paladin for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And Gilly was actually like, "Hey,
You
can
still
start."
are.
Hey, yo, whatever, man. People watch the stream; they know better now.
Okay.
But I've started weaving in different skills in there and canceling out the Rage of Holone effect, like Gilly was talking about, with like Circle of Scorn or with don't remember the name of it. The silence blade, whatever it is.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I've been weaving in a lot more instacast with my global cooldowns on Paladin. So
Well, you don't even have to weave those in, right? You just have to hit them.
I mean, you just weave it in like when you hit like say 1, then you hit global cooldown.
Okay, yeah.
So then you weave in the off global cooldown instacast, and you hit the second one, then go to the next. So yeah, I've been picking that up, and I think it's picked up my DPS in by like 70 or so.
Yeah.
So it's just different ways of pushing yourself a little further to do better at your job.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there people don't realize, which I think is actually kind of depressing. There's a good amount of mechanics that can make you a lot better of a tank or a DPS. And I feel like we're not challenged enough to actually experience those. Unless if you're doing, world first and stuff like that. Like, there's paladins out there that do over 400 DPS, right? I don't know if I'll ever do over 400 DPS unless if I spend a lot of money to go get the right kind of accessories for it. And so I would say overall, the mechanics for certain classes are great, but other ones are not nearly as well thought out as I want to be. Paladin, I feel like there needs to be more. There definitely needs to be more. There's, you have those little tricks and everything, but the skill cap to it is very, very low in comparison to the other classes that are out there.
I've actually heard that 1.0 Paladin was actually more Paladin-y than current Paladin, and that they've taken some skills away from us, so hopefully they add them back in for 3.0.
1.0 supposedly Warrior was the better tank compared to Paladin back in 1.0. Now it's like different.
Well, yeah, Warrior has to be like back then. And Jack, who was on the stream earlier, was he was telling me about all of his days about how you had to be perfect at a warrior in order to be good. But if you were perfect as a warrior, you were amazing. You have to time everything perfectly, and you would die if you didn't know how to actually play it, like in a heartbeat. Emma Stoned, good name by the way, was asking, is this a Tanks Talk show? I have no idea what all you're talking about. Need healer and DPS representation. I'm starting off with tanks. And honestly, yeah, we're all familiar with the tank mechanics. Or not Fur, I call you Fur, but Gilly, Adagio, and myself are all main tanks, or tanks in our statics. I've played Warrior and I've played Paladin multiple times. I know Adagio plays Paladin. Gilly's, you've definitely played Warrior. And I'm assuming you guys have played both of the tank classes multiple times, right?
I started off Pally and I went to Warrior.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, Em. We'll get into the other stuff. This is the first one. After we're done with tank mechanics, I'm going to jump into healing, then we'll start talking about DPS, which you guys, I would love a lot of input on that because I'm not as well versed with those two types as I am with tank mechanics.
I know we have Drawn in here. I want to know your monk secrets. I want to know everyone's monk secrets.
Yeah.
Because seeing those parsers on like people streaming like the really like world first monks and stuff pulling high ass DPS like close to 600 and stuff on T13, I'm like, how are you pulling that out of your ass? You don't have that much utility.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. All right, well, in general with mechanics, almost every class uses a 1-2-3 setup where they do 1-2-3, then they do 3-4-5, or they do, they kind of have just a set rotation that they go through. You press one skill, then after you press that one, you have a glowing skill that you're supposed to press next, and a glowing skill you're supposed to press after that. What do you guys think about that being the general mechanic for most of the classes? And I'll start with you, Adagio.
I like how the chains add extra potency to the skill, and definitely gives you a way to, like I said, just do more damage in your set mechanics. But I think it also restricts you in what you can do. I mean, me being a paladin, obviously, I don't have a lot of variation on what I do. So I would
you literally have 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would like to see. I mean, you don't use your Savage Blade or whatever it is for most of the for any
Riot Blade?
reason, unless Riot Blade. Yeah. You don't use that for any reason unless you're like doing huge pulls and you're flash spamming all the time. So I mean, there's no point of even having it for the most part. But I would like to see more variance on the combo system, honestly.
Yeah. Gilly, do you think that the way that they do mechanics, other games, they have other ways they do it. Like, you're not always supposed to hit 1, 2, 3. You're just supposed to know when you're supposed to hit a certain skill in that situation. Do you think 1, 2, 3 is something that, or having that, you hit this button and just do chain combos and that's your main rotation, is keeping all those combos in check. Is that enjoyable to you, or do you think they need to build more off of that?
I think that's what actually attracted me to this game a lot more.
Really?
Because yeah, I played Terra and it was like you got your 5 main abilities and it was just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But how you used them basically determined how good of a player you were on Terra. So having that set, this is what you need to press to get your higher potency. I actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more slow paced, but on top of that too, it's like me coming from a faster paced game kind of made this game a little bit more easy to get used to, quick, and then trying to cheat the system to get better and even more elitist, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that overall, I actually wish there was a little bit more I could dive into, because I played, and this isn't the same type of game. This is a completely different game. But StarCraft 2, you play it and you have a plethora of variety of what you can do. Eventually, you have to start to fine tune it, and everyone has to use this strategy for that strategy. But it's really open. And so coming into this, you don't have something that's open. It's just exactly what you have to do. If you don't do it, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
So, and then you get into you're actually a better player when you know to cover. When you use cover, you're a good paladin.
Nobody uses cover.
Right.
Hey,
Well,
T13 cover.
Yeah. And I mean, tank mechanics, the things that you have to worry about with tanks is, okay, you have enmity, you have damage reduction, you have different stances, so you have to know when to toggle back and forth between having Defiance on or having Sword Oath on or Shield Oath on. If you're a warrior, you actually build stacks, and you pick 3 different things that you choose when you're at the end of the stacks, and you try to use the stacks efficiently, which adds a nice little element to it that paladins don't have. So to kind of end off that conversation on tanks, when we're talking about warrior versus paladin, and I already know where I stand on this, but before I get too biased into it, with warrior versus paladin mechanics, which do you guys enjoy more playing, a warrior or a mechanic, or a warrior or a paladin? And Gilly?
Warrior.
Yeah.
Definitely warrior, because it's just, I don't know, it was more of a challenge for me. Like when I played paladin for turn 5, it was just a snooze fest for me. And then having to switch to warrior was just a little bit more fun because you had so much stuff you had to do. It's like, Storm's Path, Storm's Eye, kept your damage up, stuff like that. And then you had to mitigate because you didn't have much cooldowns like Paladin.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of ridiculous that Paladins can kind of do, you can already know where my bias is going, can do 1, 2, 3, and then they get the debuff that they're supposed to have on the boss already on there. But warriors have to do 1, 2, 3, 1, 4, 5 to get their debuff on there.
Yeah.
So I wish Paladin actually had to go a little bit more in depth to get that debuff out. Adagio, what do you think, man?
I very much enjoy playing Paladin, but that's usually because I'm the main tank in our static, so I'm usually right in the action. I don't know if I would be the main tank if I was the warrior, probably. I don't know. But I do really wish that Paladin was a little more in depth, honestly. It is a little too easy.
Yeah.
I main tanked Twintanya on warrior.
Well, actually, and no, I cleared T13 main tank as warrior, or not T13. I wish. I
you
cleared
could take
T9.
a critical rip for the longest time and live.
Yeah, T9 is what I cleared as a warrior, and it worked out great for me. I had no issues doing it, and really, I think they're on the same page. The only issue is that the warrior's taking the damage, and you have to heal it back. The paladin never takes the damage. But warriors, you actually get a 5% extra. So it's like 25% healing, add it to a warrior, and then you have 20% reduction as a paladin. So it all balances out in the end, to be honest with you. I like warriors. I think they're a little bit more reactive, and you have to go through a certain combination and have things planned out a little bit better.
Yeah.
But, that being said, and also on the whole thing about main tanking as a paladin, there are a lot of people right now who, are done with in-game basically, but they're static. In order to go through faster, the warrior is the main tank and the paladin is the off tank because it does more damage overall.
Yep.
So that's something that I'm excited to get into eventually so I can start DPSing as a warrior and I can feel a little bit more powerful. But I hate seeing my DPS on there with no DPS gear going into the fight.
We're actually. I was actually wondering, since Gilly's potentially going Dark Knight 3.0, if I was going to switch over to Warrior, what was going to happen on that.
I mean, I honestly, and this is how I expect it to happen. I'll be upset if it doesn't happen with the expansion. Is that you can have warrior, and you have Dark Knight. You can have Dark Knight. You have paladin. You have paladin, and you can have warrior, and they're all the same level. You don't really have one's extremely better than the other. One might be a little bit better, but I would be upset if they had it to where you had to have this 2 combination or you couldn't get through a certain fight quick enough. It's just not progression friendly. And that would be upsetting to me. I hope it adds a lot more you have these 2 different classes where you do this strategy instead, and this is a different way that you guys would tank or something. So if we were going to improve the tank mechanics in the game, what's one way that we could do it, Adagio?
As far as what are you talking about? As far as
what would you add to a paladin to make it more interesting? Would you have more combinations to it?
Definitely more combinations. Maybe a little more damage. I know if you can switch into Sword Oath when you're not main tanking to do a little more damage, but it's never going to get close to Warrior's damage. Just a little more in the variety of combos. Just change it up a little bit. Not so much repetitive movements on the paladin part.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would like a little bit more room to kind of grow skill wise as a paladin. What about you, Gilly?
I don't think anything needs to be fixed at this point. I mean,
you're completely content.
I'm pretty content with it. Because a paladin, if you think about it just by looking at the class, it's supposed to have that mitigation because of the shield. Whereas, the warrior, basically you have an axe. You're just there to pretty much blow shit up.
Right.
Pardon my French, but and then Dark Knight with that sword, it's kind of hinting towards it's going to be more towards a DPS / I don't know, mana holding. If it goes int, though, I'm going to be a little pissed about that.
It sounds like they are, but, I mean, we'll see. I'm going to disagree with you completely, Gilly, because I want to disagree with you right now. And I'm going to say that there needs to be more to these classes, and we need more room to grow. And I hope that with Heavensward, they add more abilities, and we have that much more to choose from. We don't always agree on everything. Take it. So I'm going to go back to a question that was kind of queued up here for a second from Dran. He said it would be more interesting to see different effects rather than just flat bonuses on positionals. If you're on the flank, you would do a stun. If you're on the rear, you do a debuff or something similar to that. What do you guys think about that?
That would definitely be interesting for sure. To definitely make you think out your strategy more. You'd want to be like, oh, well, this guy's about to do this huge rear cleave, so let me do this certain mechanic on the side here, and then when that's done, I'm going to go to the back and do a stun or something. That'd be pretty interesting.
I think that it would be amazing because then you would say, hey, I'm just going to attack from the back because I never need to stun this guy, and then I'm going to have a debuff on him. Or, I switch to the side, and do minimal positionals. Don't do you have to always constantly be in a different position to do more damage in every fight. And yeah, I know Jin is completely, I said Gilly. It's kind of funny.
Oh, they're the same person. Yeah. Really.
Jin said she's tired of positionals, and that's why they had to take it away from Dragoons, right? Because it was just getting too ridiculous. And I feel like a lot of players don't like having to do that. And if you do a couple other things, say, is an optional thing that just does a little bit different of a bonus, like a different status effect, that actually could make it, better. You don't have to do it. You'll still do good damage, but you won't be able to stun them at the right time, or you won't be able to...
just like an extra bonus.
Yeah, just nothing that's detrimental to your damage in the group. And we got another statement or question here from Clef Gaming. I feel like a paladin needs more than more AoE damage to mitigate similar to overpower.
Yeah, I'll agree
Yeah.
to that one.
Oh, yeah.
Because Circle of Scorn, no matter how much they
that's
say
all you
they
got.
buffed it, the threat on that, it doesn't do jack squat.
I hate it when we're trying to like push a phase in T13 and I have to flash. I'm like, if I don't spam flash, the black mage is going to pull off these gusts from me. I have to sit there and just spam it until I get it all in there. And it's kind of frustrating too. I wish maybe if flash did something besides just, I mean, blinding stuff is kind of awesome. It's nice and really defensive, but you're not killing the stuff faster, which maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's not like as bad as I think it is, but I'll kind of agree that flash is boring.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so let's jump into healing, which I'm sure people are kind of glad we're off of tank stuff now. So when we're talking about healing, I have actually sort of minimal experience with it. I got a scholar all the way up to 50 because it was easy to get into dungeons and level it, so I could build my summoner up. But I sucked as a scholar. I did really bad. People always died in the groups, and I just DPS. They said, just DPS. We'll find a way to do it. And then I'm leveling a white mage right now, which I kind of like because it doesn't seem as complicated. I think a pet just overwhelms me for some reason. What do you guys think about the healing mechanics that are currently in the game? And I'll start with you, Gilly.
I just use white mage because I'm really lazy. I want to level my scholar to get more in depth into healing, but to be honest, it's just like once I get on healer, like I dreaded when I did my paladin, I was actually required to go get stone skin, and it was so bad having to grind all those fates, and it's just like I hate being on a conjurer. I didn't get white mage until I hit level 50. I actually didn't do the job requisites. It's like I don't know. I'm bad at it. And then when I go into Circus Tower with like my white mage, I just sit there and spam Medica 2, and then I'll throw a regen on the main tank. It's as much of an extent as I do as healing.
Yeah. And you're gonna hate Astrologian. From what I hear, it's gonna be like ridiculously complicated to play. And I have to stick to white mage too, because while I'm leveling it, it seems more straightforward. But I'm sure it's maybe even a little bit more complicated than I think it is. But I don't know. I don't have a 50 white mage yet. And what about you, Adagio?
Right now I'm still leveling my scholar, but I do have the white mage fully leveled out, and I usually run that through like Circus Tower, Labyrinth of the Ancients, and World of Darkness, because I just don't like running tank on that. But yeah, I generally do like white mage and how it runs, and I do believe that the white mage and the scholar do really work well off of each other, and I'm quite interested to see what Astrologian brings to the table and how it integrates into the hills.
Yeah, I can't. Again, I get on that same thing. I hope Astrologian isn't like one of those things where you just add it in there and you always have to have Astrologian. I would go crazy if that's the case. Mechanic-wise, it seems like it's going to be a ridiculous class to play, switching between the two different stances, the barrier stance and the heal stance. But that's another thing that worries me. What if you have two Astrologians and you have one in a heal stance and you have one in a barrier stance? Is it better than having a white mage and a scholar, or is it the same thing? Or, I don't really care to ever see two of the same classes in a group, because I like the variety in a group and having more options. And I don't care if I have a monk in the group, but as long as I have something else that could do something nice for the group, like ninjas can make the group heal more, right? Get stronger heals. And so you may not be able to reduce the damage, but you can get the heals back if you survive the hit. So, gosh. All right. So, going kind of a little bit more in depth to it, what kind of mechanics do we have, for a healer? We got HOTS, where you do healing over time, like regen. Is that like one of the only ones, though? Am I missing that?
Medica 2, I think, is one of them, too.
Okay. You don't really have a lot of that in the game, I guess, if you only have those two. And then you have absorbs, which is mainly scholar stuff, and that's kind of where they shine, right? But you have stone skin too, which is better for a white mage, but it's not optimal to use that unless if you just want to be extra safe from like a T13 hit. Then you have a couple. I know white mage has an RNG proc for getting a free cure.
Free cure.
Free cure. What do you guys? Are there other parts in the white mage and scholar discussion where they have RNG abilities, or is that really the only thing that you guys can think of?
They do have an overpowered that pops occasionally on Cure 3 also, but I don't think anybody hardly ever uses it, honestly.
Yeah. What do you guys think about that, though? I mean, RNG procs, is that something that you guys would even want to see in the game? Is that something that's more just like annoying than anything else?
Well, I mean, I think it's...
Go ahead, Adachi. No, that's fine.
I think it's good because that's when the Heal 2 or the Cure 2 does pop, that's a no MP cast, so that's automatically good. I mean, why wouldn't you want to have that? It's an awesome pop, and I think it usually, I'm not sure, but I think it crits most of the time too, but I'm not 100% on that. But yeah, it's a free Cure 2, so why wouldn't you want to have that?
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like the RNG element just doesn't, to me, bring a lot to the game. It's not anything that's skill-based. You're just like, I hope this works out, then it'll be a little bit better for me later on. You don't build a stat to make that it's not like crit. You don't build an RNG based on your skill. Say, my RNG number is higher, so I'm more likely to get a free heal. It's just something that you get. Gilly, what do you think, man, about RNG? RNG stuff in the game.
RNG is pretty good. I mean, depending on the situation. Because for Scholar, for instance, like if an Adlo crits you, I'm pulling the whole room in an instance. I'm pulling all of it.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't crit, you're pretty much like, all right, babysit me for a couple seconds. Maybe I'll live. But yeah, like RNG would be pretty awesome to see. I mean, when I first heard it, like Adlo, like if it critted you, you can't take any damage pretty much. It's like another stone skin.
Mm-hmm.
That would be actually pretty cool to see for like an Astro, or for more heals, for like split between the 3 healers. That'd be pretty cool.
Okay, I'm going to disagree with you again. I'm going to say that I think RNG is a crazy element to have in the game. I mean, it's something that's kind of nice. Like, I don't think that we should ever have to require it. If you had a stat that could build it up, like and I agree, crit is nice. It's nice to see those big numbers pop up every once in a while, but you can build on that stat. That's something you can actually work on. But when you get into like your abilities and it's not something you can work on, it sucks to me. I wish that, I didn't have to hope that I got lucky with a free cure. Let's just say a free cure it popped up, and I have more mana in the end. But then again, your mana is really just a balance that you're playing anyways, and I don't think it ever really kills you. I'm going to throw a quick tangent into this conversation just to address a question Emma when I put in there. She was just asking. She put in a request. And Emma Stone, maybe you're a guy, maybe you're not a guy, I don't know. But when we say, she said, can we add a discussion next week about the official parser? Hey, Miss Tech, how you doing? It's good to see you.
Hey, Miss Tech.
But about talking about an official parser for the game, and that's something that I wouldn't mind discussing about adding or how these things affect the game. There's a lot of things. I think Limit Break Radio discussed it once, and they got a lot of heat about it, talking about guild work. But it'd be something that would be interesting to talk about, and I'll be more than happy to talk about it like next week. But yeah, and Emma kind of followed that up too. She said, I'd like the mechanic when you heal an undead, you do damage instead.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that, like, where are the skeletons? Like, or there is skeletons, but why couldn't healers heal them just to kind of do DPS?
I think that would be awesome. That would just be a nice little side thing that you could do. It doesn't really improve much, but in certain fights, it gives them something fun to do, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And thank you for the host, by the way, Miss Tech. I really, really appreciate it. But going into it a little bit more, let's get off RNG real quick. The other things you kind of do when you're in healing, with healing mechanics is you got debuff removals. So Asuna, Leech, do you guys feel like the healers actually do enough in that game with Asuna Leech to actually make them worthwhile? I mean, you have... I can only think of a handful of fights where they're really valuable. I mean, you have things where you just use them because you got poison on there. Starting out, you don't even care. Like some of the fights in the earlier dungeons, you rather heal than just do an Asuna. But what do you guys think they use enough or get enough use out of Asuna and Leech throughout the fights?
I could say as leveling a scholar right now, I don't remember which dungeon it is. I think it's Totorak, where you have the boss that does poisons on everybody. I really missed not having a way to dispel that. I just had to heal through it. I was like, I have no way to dispel this because I don't have leeches or Asuna at that point in the game. So that's something I definitely missed on that fight. I wish that they had it in lower level at least.
Yeah. I mean, T13, would you want like an Asuna in T13?
For my pacification, yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the big thing for it. Gilly, do you think that Asuna needs a little bit more use in the game? They need to throw more mechanics out there in boss fights where you have to use it?
Yeah, like, to be honest, like, I wish it would work on petrifaction, all the other, like, abilities that hinders you from moving or doing anything, you know?
Yeah.
Because it seems like it doesn't even, like, it only does, like, what, poison right now?
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. I mean, they don't have anything for petrified or some dungeons you can't even get healed from paralyze at all.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think it would be something that would make the game a little bit more enjoyable if healers just had that extra role where I'm not just sitting here trying to keep everybody alive. Let me go ahead and Asuna this guy so he doesn't stay petrified and he can do damage so we can get past the next point. Infernalos asked, if you want to advertise it on Twitch, Chan, on GW, go ahead. Do what you want, man. I love people coming in here and watching. So, another thing with healing, you got the main thing that I think that healers do right now, to be a good healer, is the pre-plan heal. You say, hey, I have a big hit coming up, and that tells you the difference between a good healer and a bad healer, is that they heal you before the damage actually hits.
Yeah.
And I wish that, I really think that's really the only big mechanic right now that changes you from having, downing T13 with good healers and bad healers. I don't know. And then healers, in certain spots, they do damage, and that's kind of their fallback. Oh, I don't have to heal a lot, so let me do some damage to actually have a little bit more fun in this game. Mm-hmm. Then scholars get to play around a little bit with charges, which is... What do you guys think about that as a mechanic for healing, too, by the way? Just having, hey, I have a charge. It's not like a cooldown, but it's like you have one cooldown, and you can use it 3 times throughout a certain amount of time. So it's kind of a cooldown within a cooldown.
Kind of like benediction, but make it on like a longer cast.
Yeah,
it'd be pretty cool.
I mean, I think it would be a nice thing to see on some of the other classes, and maybe that's what makes scholars unique. They have their cooldown inside of a cooldown. Man. Yeah, they have an oh shit. You have 3 oh shits within this time span. Adagio, what do you think, man?
I think that's cool, but I think that it comes to a point to where I did know somebody that said that when they start panicking, they just start lustrating and they stop concentrating on mechanics, and that's all they do is lustrate. And I think that
I'm out of lustrates.
I think that can be a bad crutch for a healer sometimes. So I mean, yeah, it's good for if you're using it right, but if you're using it as a crutch and not learning the mechanics properly, then I can see how it'd be a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what do you guys think about having a pet as a healer? Do you think having that pet adds a whole another element that makes scholars that much more difficult than white mages? I think it does, because I was overwhelmed by it. But Gilly, do you think that maybe it's taken a little bit more, like you don't have to worry about it as much as I think I have to worry about it?
I know some people actually complain about having, like when they play Scholar, like playing on a controller is really hard to multitask, having a pet, and then having to heal at the same time because you have to switch through all those hotbars. But if it makes the player if it makes the person a lot better at healing at all the other classes, yeah, I would like, yeah, it's a pretty good switch off, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, Adagio, what do you think about the element of having a pet healing with you?
I think it's good because I think most scholars use the pet, and they throw out DPS. I know that our scholar does DPS on Blackfires when they're out, and it does a lot of DPS damage in T13. Lets his fairy cut up the slack for healing, and then when you need the extra healing, you have the scholar there to accomplish that. But I think it's awesome, especially if they use their pet properly and, just throw out extra damage and they're doing their job properly, doing it good. I mean, that's wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, I think a good scholar and a bad scholar, one of the big things is management of the pet properly. Mm-hmm. But maybe I'm, again, wrong about that. Chat, tell me if I'm wrong about that, too. So let's go ahead and just ask the question. Which one's better, white mage or scholar, mechanically to play? Adagio, I'll start with you, man.
I can't honestly rate Scholar too well because I'm only like a level 30 something. But I love my white mage. I love the way that it plays. I love being I think it's the way white mages are more reactive. They like to heal after the damage has been imparted, and that's just the way I like to heal. I don't know about how Scholar mostly heals, but I like to heal. I like to be more reactive with my heals.
Gilly, what do you think, man?
I'd have to go with Scholar. I don't have my Scholar leveled up, but when I actually got to play it on Jen's character, it was actually really fun. White Mage is kind of a snooze fest for me, but having a challenge, another class that's another challenge is actually really awesome for me.
Well, let's talk about that too, because we're kind of in the same boat with comparing Paladin and Warrior. One has a little bit more work that you got to put into it; the other one doesn't. Is that a good thing? So, hey, we have white mages for people who don't want to have to go through all that nonsense of getting really good at the class, and then we have the scholar who feels like white mages are overwhelming. And that's kind of the same boat, I think, for warriors and paladins. Is that a good thing to have in the game, just saying, hey, here's kind of an easier mode for people who don't want to deal with learning the class as much? Adagio?
Well, when you get down to like the end game raids and stuff, like I said, it's mostly the white mage doing most of the healing, where the scholar is doing a lot of DPS and then doing raid. I don't know if they're doing raid heals, but they're just filling in for what the white mage isn't doing. So it's really hard to say which one is really like better in that sense, because they do their own jobs and they both have their own. They both have their own thing to do, so,
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Gilly, what do you think? If having an easier and a harder, do you think it's a good idea to have an easier class and a harder class to do the same role?
Yeah. Because it'll challenge people to actually make the easier classes a lot harder, too.
Right.
If you may not be the most effective white mage, but you may be amazing at scholar for some weird reason, but okay. Or you can be an amazing scholar and be a terrible white mage because you're so used to multitasking, your pet, and then on top of that, shielding, debuffing, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if it can challenge a person, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I actually do love having that gimp class and then a challenging class.
Yeah. Emma, I just saw this question pop up, and I figured I'd just go ahead and say it. Emma Stone asked, the three of us, since we're all mainly tanks, which one we like healing us more, white mages or scholars? And I will answer that simply, whoever keeps me alive.
Exactly.
What do you guys think?
Yeah, it doesn't matter as long as I'm staying alive. That's all that matters.
As long as I'm sealing them heals, I'm good.
Because I don't understand what the heals are doing to me. I just know the guy keeps me alive, so he's a good healer. I can't think, he's a scholar, so he's going to do better, or he's a white mage, he's going to do better. It's just whoever keeps me up and running. I'm going to go ahead and say white mage because Kerr is my girlfriend and it'll make it a little bit easier for me.
That's a biased answer, huh?
Yeah. So coming into, astrology is going to add this whole nother layer, and we don't even know all the in-depth details about it yet, but we just know it's going to be a lot more challenging. For improvements, can you think, do there even need to be improvements on the classes for white mage and scholar right now, Adagio?
I think we really have to wait and see what Astrologian is going to bring to the table. But there's always room for improvement on any class. So yeah, I would like to see better skills or more improved skills when on 3.0 comes out for all classes, not just healers.
Mm-hmm. Gilly,
I would like to say, please. Speed up the animations on some of those heals.
Yeah,
there's those moments where some healers will let you get down to like the very tick of health, and then try to Benny you or spam heal lustrates on you, and it's just like, you're not gonna keep me alive. Just stop.
Fair enough.
There is talk about doing spell speed and skill speed actually applying to dots and hots. So. I think that's going to be an interesting element that they're going to be messing around with when that finally does drop, and that's going to really separate out the better healers. Obviously they're going to min-max for that, and they'll just figure figure out who's doing their job better. Right?
Right. I mean, I think right now both the White Mage and the Scholar are in pretty good positions for where they should be mechanically. I don't know if they need to really add too much more to it. I think they're both really great options for the game. And I mean, to go back on that, I guess maybe so are a Paladin and Warrior. You have one that's a little bit harder to learn. I don't like that most groups will always have them in a certain spot, like Warrior always has to be off tank or Paladin always has to be main tank. I like it where it's mixed up a little bit more. But other than that, I guess that makes a lot more sense to have an easy and a hard mode version of the classes. So we'll get into the last bit of mechanics for classes. Let's go into the DPS section of it. Just before we even start it, the main DPS class that I've played is Summoner. Gilly, what are your main DPS classes?
I play Monk, and I started to learn Dragoon.
Okay. Adagio?
I'm decent at Monk, and I have a very well-ly geared Black Mage, which I'm extremely terrible at.
Gotcha. Well, with our fairly okay knowledge, I have more knowledge of DPS than I do with healing. I would say that there's a good variety of different mechanics for DPS at the moment. For example, you got monks that have to do positionals, which I think might be some of the most in-depth stuff. And you have ninjas that have to do their mudras and they can't lag, or if they lag, they get the lag bunnies. And then you have the daughter, which is the daughter and the pet guy, which is currently the summoner. So, I mean, you can go on, and there's just different versions of mechanics. If you don't like this class, you can try a different class, and it's going to be a different feel mechanically, right? Would you?
For sure.
Okay. So, let's go ahead and just say, how do you guys think that right now the DPS are in a pretty good spot? Is there any DPS you're like, this is the stupidest DPS class? I can't believe that they made it so boring. I don't know why anyone would want to play this class. If you guys had to say that, which class would that be? Adagio?
Even though I can't play it well, I get very bored with Black Mage. It's a very simple rotation, but...
Most people, I think, might agree with you that it's kind of boring, because you have to stay still, and if you don't stay still, then you don't really do that much DPS either. Gilly?
If Arcanist counts.
Fair enough.
Well, I'm gonna say this. I know that a lot of people are there's some Summoner mains probably in the chat, but Summoner probably would be the most boring.
I like Summoner, but I get where you're coming from. It's kind of, to me, I don't know, it's like playing Whack-A-Mole, but you're doing it with dots. You're like, do I have all my dots on this guy? Okay, where's the other guy? Let me put dots on them. Oh, okay, I've only got one guy. Let me figure out what kind of rotation I need to do now and what kind of skill I need to place. I don't know. I feel like it's a lot more fun to play, and I suck at it. I do moderate damage. I don't think I can ever be like really good at it. But I think it's fun. But see, then again, Gilly, we're back at arms. All right, I like it. All right, so we have a handful of different DPS mech that's important to the game, and we kind of went over them, like dots, positionals, and then do you guys, all classes depend on a heavy cooldown, right? And you have to time when you're doing your heavy cooldown, and if you do it right before when he jumps in the air or something where you can't do damage, you're a bad DPS. Or that's pretty much what it boils down to, is that you're not efficiently doing the damage that you could be doing. Do you guys like that kind of element in the game? Does that just add another level to it that you feel needs to be there? Gilly?
Raising the skill cap, yeah, for sure. It'll push players to be better at their class. That's for damn sure, actually.
Yeah.
Because I have yet to meet like some DPS in like a pug dungeon to exactly wow me. The only way I actually see like people who DPS that actually ever dropped my jaw were basically people on Twitch.
Yeah.
But even then, you can't really see because maybe the person you're watching is a tank or a scholar, so you can't really see what the DPS is doing.
Right. Adagio?
I'm gonna go with Black Mage again. I do believe. I mean, I'm horrible at it, but the people that get there and they know where they need to be standing, they know exactly what they need to be casting and when they need to be casting it, and exactly when to move. They can really push out the numbers and push that class to the max, and I think that's good. I mean, there's no way I could do that, but I mean, I think that it's an interesting and good element for them. So,
do you think heavy cooldowns make them a little bit more interesting, or it's just as boring?
I think it would probably, for the people that actually play that and know what they're doing, it makes it interesting because they have to know when the big hits are going to come, and they have to know exactly when they move. So they have to know when they can cast and when they have to have that cooldown ready.
Yeah, I think right now that the mechanics, at least, and this is just again my own opinion, is that the mechanics for DPS are awesome, and the reason why is because you can measure skill a lot better with a DPS than you can with a tank or a healer. Because you measure that skill with a meter. You get a ACT or you get some sort of parser, and then you can say, hey, I'm doing this number, I'm exactly this good with this class, right? I mean, that's kind of your value, but then again, you have to stay alive too, but if you're not alive, then you don't do more damage, so it kind of still works out. I think that healers don't have that ability to say, hey, if no one messes up on mechanics, healer's job is actually, not nearly as hard as it could be, but they're there to make up for everyone else, and I guess that's kind of their role, but they don't have that ability to say, I'm doing this much heals, so that means I'm this good. You do good heals, but all you're really doing is trying to soak those big hits and make up for other people's mistakes. And tanks, same thing, you're just staying alive. Can I press my cooldown at the right time? That's their skill ability. So I really think that people take a lot more advantage of the DPS mech than any of the other types like tank and healing. The other thing that kind of makes you a good DPS if you're messing with mechanics is the support abilities they have. And every DPS has a support ability, right? Am I missing that? Is there one class out there that doesn't have a support ability with it?
No, I don't think so. I think they all have at least one thing in there.
Yeah, and they're important. They definitely change the way the fight goes. Like, I know without those epochs in T13, we'd have a harder time when someone messes up on Rage. Or we get too many people getting those stacks with Rage, Dragoons. So that's what I'm wondering about. Do Dragoons have any other utility that they can support the group with besides doing lots of damage? They have high health, but they take more damage.
Disembowel supports Bard.
What is Disembowel? Oh, yeah, that's right. They help Bards. They make Bards do more damage. And I'm in a group right now that has a Bard, a Black Mage, a Ninja, and a Dragoon. So the Bard does nothing but mainly DPS. And so he loves having that Dragoon, and he's one of our top DPS, just simply because that's the role we put in there. And I like it that we can make him do DPS that's at least at the same tier as, Monk and Dragoon. Then, they're versatile. They can do whatever they want. And getting into that being versatile, we do have a question from Mobo Boyd. He said, do you think Summoner needs to be more versatile? Only one viable pet seems really poor. I agree that just being able to only have Garuda sucks. It really does suck. If you have Ifrit, it doesn't usually work out. And so, to me, summoners do need a rework on their pets. I don't think that you can just have one. You shouldn't just have to use Garuda.
Well, it's they're supposed to be adding Ramu and Titan to their roster. So I mean, it really comes to see if it's just like a reskin and they did the same thing, or if they're going to have their own special abilities. So I guess we have to really wait for 3.0 to see if that's going to be something that helps them out.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to see more with the Summoner for sure, like if with the rework, is I want to see them utilize more of their summons instead of just like Frosty just said, Garuda. That's all you see endgame now. I mean, you don't see anybody pulling out Titan, or you don't ever see anybody pulling out Ifrit in like T13 and stuff.
Right. I mean, I wish that there was different ways that you can, like, I DPS this way, and having this pet for the type of way I'm DPSing makes me do more damage, or I am more focused on DPSing in this way. But you only have one way to DPS as a summoner. You don't have multiple different ways to do it. So maybe that's where it boils down to, and that's the only way you can make a player choose a different pet, is if you had different ways to DPS, and it was just a style choice. But I do agree. I do hope that there's some sort of option in the future, like Ramu. So where'd you hear that Ramu might be a possible pet?
I don't know if it's Ramu. I do believe they're supposed to be adding 2. I do believe Leviathan is one, and I guess that would only leave Ramu as the other one. I don't think they're going to be adding Shiva.
That would be cool. Or Odin.
I don't think they're adding Odin. That'd be pretty awesome.
Or Knights of the Realm.
Yeah, just have Odin come out and like Omnislash everything in the one-shot T13 or something.
Could you imagine having just 4 pets running around as with Knights of the Round, and you just have them running around and killing stuff?
That'd be pretty crazy.
I would love it. Okay, so getting into this, what is the most difficult DPS to play mechanically? Gilly?
I would have to say Monk. Monk and Ninja. If you mess up your mudras, you're pretty much screwed out of DPSing for a little bit. And then Ninjas, if you lose your stacks, if you don't have perfect balance or you don't have a faster way to get up to it, or even if a boss disconnects from the field, it changes it. It makes it hard to keep up the DPS on those classes.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that definitely most people would probably agree with you. In chat, please tell me your thoughts on this too. I'd like to know everybody's opinion on it. Adagio?
I'm trying to think of a different class just to throw a little bit of extra discussion out there, but I can't really. I mean, before the Dragoon nerf or whatever, definitely them because they had so many positionals. But I'm gonna have to go with Monk because they're still highly positional based and they do rely on stacks. And if they lose their stacks, they're not doing as much DPS, and that's just bringing down the whole raid.
Yeah. I would say Summoner is kind of up there just because I've seen a good Summoner and a bad Summoner, and I was the bad Summoner. Just knowing exactly when to do a certain, like, when to do an instant cast, when to do throw down, I can't even remember the name that you throw down on the ground. What's it called?
Shadow Flare?
Shadow Flare, yeah. I haven't played it in a while. But, when to instant cast that at a certain time on T9, and every fight can be different, and hey, I need to get these dots out there because it's more important to have those dots out on that fight before he jumps in the air or when they get back on the ground. Or how to get if you can cast Shadow Flare before he lands so you can do more damage and have less casting time overall. And balance Ruin and Ruin 2 because if you do that with your cooldowns and you do it a certain way, then you do a lot more damage in the end. And so I think that's extremely challenging and that they don't get enough credit for, the good summoners at least, get enough credit for what they do. Okay, so discussing on the opposite end of this, what is the easiest class to play? And chat, again, tell me your opinions on it. Gilly?
I think it's a tie between Bard and Dragoon. Dragoon after they nerfed the positionals for them.
Yeah. Okay. Adagio?
I'm not gonna say Bard only because generally, like in a raid status, they are doing a lot of kiting around of ads and like say T7, our Bard did the Renauds. I know you could do it with a summoner too, but it was our Bard did that. So I mean, there's an extra added difficulty there. But yeah, basically Dragoon after the nerf. I don't really know where else to go with that.
Yeah, I would say. I would kind of agree, but I mean, I haven't had enough. I mean, I only leveled up a Dragoon a little bit, and those early skills with Dragoon, you press the one ability the entire time. You don't do anything else because you don't have the stacking positionals or anything with it anymore. But I would say probably Dragoon too, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Now after nerfs and everything, it's pretty easy to play, I think. If you were... Okay, so before I even ask if you're going to add what improvements that you guys... Let me do this in two parts. Does DPS classes currently need improvements to their mechanics? And if they do, what are they? Adagio, what do you think?
Well, again, it comes down to... You can always throw improvements to any class, and... I mean, you can improve on your own with what you have, but then you can also improve abilities in the class and make the class better. And yeah, there's always going to be something that the producers can do to make the class run better or even more skilled for a skill level cap. I mean, there's always something they can do to increase things. I mean, maybe make a Dragoon a little more back to where it used to be to make it do more. I don't know how much damage Dragoons do, but I mean, just something to add skill, keep the classes interesting to play, really.
Okay. Gilly, what do you think, man?
Fix a lot of add more global cooldowns, maybe. I don't know, like, it seems like they're pretty balanced right now, but I can attest to every monk's woe is, losing your grease lightning stacks. That's one of them. Ninjas, resetting your mudra, hopefully. Mm-hmm. Maybe add more skill base, more potency to your attacks. Make some abilities useful, like Haymaker for monk. Nobody ever uses it. Or what? Feint for Dragoon. Come on. Make something useful out of it.
I gotcha. I'm actually kind of neutral on it because I don't think I have enough DPS experience to really say what you could do on improvements, and I think that they've done a pretty decent job overall on it. And just keep on at it, Square. I hope Machinist is awesome, because if it's not, I'm going to be upset. It's my future, and if they mess up my future, I'm going to be really, really upset. So another question from Emma Stone. He was saying for summoners, and I guess this would fall into the lines of improvements, is to have a fat Chocobo pet as summon pet. So
well, it's been done before.
Yeah, so you can summon the fat Chocobo, and he'll just kind of bounce around on his butt, and then when you need it to attack, he'll just jump in the air like a Dragoon and then fall back down right on top of the boss or whatever. That'd be fun. But to finish this topic off, going into Heaven's Ward, are you guys kind of concerned? Because I don't know, I have a good amount of experience with other MMOs, mainly WoW, and going into more expansions and adding more elements to these classes, you get into this issue of ability bloat. And so all of the abilities, you're going to have a whole bunch of abilities, and you just won't know what to do with them, and most of them probably aren't even going to be useful. Are you guys kind of concerned about that, or do you think that you're welcoming more abilities to the game? Adagio?
I am welcoming more abilities to the game, but useful abilities. We do have abilities currently in our roster which are just about useless and pointless. If they're going to add abilities, they need to have a distinct purpose and be used in more than just like this one particular instance. And that's across all classes. All classes have skills that they don't use for anything. So, I mean, like Gilly was saying, you just need to have skills that are useful.
Yeah. Gilly, what do you think, man? Ability bloats.
I will have to disagree, because I already pushed too many buttons on T13. Because having to keep up 2 debuffs on top of that, reapplying fracture, and then having to, pray I don't die to Akhmorn because I didn't pop the right cooldown, it's all my bad.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, adding more to the arsenal would actually just hit, like, to me, T13's already scripted. Like, I use the same abilities all in the same line sequence. It pops at this certain time, pops at this certain phase, stuff like that. So, I
mean, as a paladin, I'll say that I don't think that fight is nearly as important or as interesting as I would want it to be, just because I'm going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 circle scoring, and then the other off cooldown. What's it called? Swipe or something. I don't even know what it's called. I just know what it looks like. It's a sword at swiping. That's how much I care about the class. I switched to it because we had a warrior already in the group, and I had a closer level to a paladin. And hey, Adagio's baby. He wants to be part of the discussion too. Hey, Adagio.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I'm sure he has some useful comments to add to the discussion here. What's your child's favorite class to play?
Warrior.
Warrior. Yeah.
He hasn't played anything, but my daughter was playing around my Dragoon a few weeks ago.
How old is your daughter?
My Dragoon, my Paladin. She's 4.
4? Yeah, I have actually a friend who she had babies, after getting addicted to MMOs, and they all started playing MMOs afterwards too. And at 4, she's like, get on the keyboard and figure out how to use it so I can use you to do raids with me. And we actually have a friend, Afrini, that's on our server, who has, I think, 7 family members that plays with him. And they all have a static, and they go and down stuff together. And it's mainly just his wife, him, and his kids. So
that's pretty awesome. I actually told Jen we're going to have 6 kids so we can start our own raid group.
Fair enough. That sounds like a plan, man. Get it done. And then, you only got, I'm sure Final Fantasy XIV will still be relevant within the time frame. So 6 kids. The last one will be 6 when the first one is around 12, because you're going to have to pump them out every single year. So Final Fantasy XIV has to last at least 12 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think they can do it. They did it with 11, so you can make it happen. So, all right. Well, that's kind of all the discussion thoughts I have before we jump into 2.55 information that I just kind of want to go over. Do you guys have any last thoughts on this discussion and mechanics general overall? Adagio?
Please look forward to it.
Please look forward to it. New mechanics.
Again. if they do add skills, they just need to be useful. We don't need more trash skills.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. They need to have more skills that I think that they should have different ways to use the skills that will make them more interesting and give, if I'm a ninja, I could be a ninja that specializes in this type of skill that I use, and so I have to build more crit because this type of skill favors crit, or I have to do more determination because crit does nothing if I go down this path as a ninja, and they do around the same damage, then that would be great. Okay. So let's go on to the point that a lot of people are kind of looking forward to, which is, of course, 2.55. Are you guys hyped for it tomorrow?
Very much so.
Gosh, I'm ridiculously hyped for it. It's the end of A Realm Reborn, the revival of Final Fantasy XIV, before we get into the next stage of it. And they're adding a couple of different things in here, but this patch also has to last us like 3 months.
3 months. Yep.
3 months is going to be kind of a hard wait. I think that most people are going to get all this content done within the next 2 weeks, then it has to last us another 2.5 months, which is kind of depressing, but hopefully they put a couple more little patches out there that kind of... Sorry, I just saw someone say kill off Minfilia. Minfilia, yeah. And I actually did a post of who people would care the least about if they died in this patch, and it was Minfilia. Most people didn't care about it. And, this is a question for your chat, too. Who do you want to die? If you had to have someone die and then you'd be okay with it, who would you be okay with dying as a main character? And I'll just leave that to the chat. So, the patch starts... The patch starts, and let me ask you guys this question too before we get into it. Adagio, who would you not care if they just completely disappeared and fell off the radar?
Shoot. That's really hard. Crap.
Fair enough. What about Hildebrand? Would you care if he died?
Yeah, I actually would care if he died. I like him a lot. Honestly, I think Nanamo, whatever the old leaders.
A lot of people has a lot of hate for her.
She can go ahead and go away. I mean, it's mostly Roban that's the leader anyways.
Yeah. What about you, man? Gilly?
I would have to say Urianger.
Yeah, Urianger.
He lost already Mombrita. Spoiler alert, but that's about it. That's all he had in the world. And aside from sitting in waking sands for the rest of his life.
Although he didn't seem to really be too interested in her. He was kind of annoyed with her most of the time, wasn't he?
I think so.
He doesn't have a big personality to him either. He's just really intelligent, it seems like. And so, maybe some people will be sad that he goes, but I don't think they'd be nearly as upset. If... who would you say is the most favorite? If someone died and they would be really upset. I'm trying to find a really good example here. Was it Ida?
Ida.
I think a lot of people would probably be upset if she was gone.
I think a lot of people would quit if Yashitola died too.
Yeah. Well, she's going on to Dissidia, so that's all right. Okay, so the patch starts tonight, and it's 10 p.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time or whatever, PDT, and it goes until 4 a.m. So this is a little bit of a longer patch, and so it's not that long. It's like 6 hours. But then you get all the new content that will come out. One thing is Final Coil is going to be added to Duty Finder. There wasn't a lot of official stuff also announced by that. It's just kind of assumptions that there's not going to be any Echo